Somebody was like, get these girls some microphone stands.
Oh, yeah. We're mobile girls. We can't bring our stands everywhere. And these microphones are so freaking heavy. Most of the stands don't even hold them up.
That's the other problem. And I also feel like I had to get a new mic because my other one broke. And this, like, for some reason doesn't fit onto the microphone stand.
It's the same mic. That's strange. But typical problem for us. Because this is 2 girls, 1 ghost.
2 girls, 1 ghost. And we are your ghostesses. That's Corinne.
Hello.
And I'm Sabrina. I feel like we should start today by pulling an oracle card because I need to know what's up with my future.
Yes, you should do that. The other day when my parents were here, we were just walking around. I had them stop with me in this one bookstore that I had purchased the next 2 ACOTAR books from because I needed to go pick them up. So I was like, we're detouring for a little bit. So we went over to that bookstore, and at the register, they had one of those, like, you know, like the old toy or candy machines that you would see at the grocery store, almost like a gumball machine or like a slot, like enter 4 quarters and push it in and you'll get like a card or whatever. They had that for oracle cards. So I did it. Well, I had to borrow money from my parents. I had to borrow quarters. I didn't have any change, but out popped the Queen of Pentacles. And my parents were like, oh, what does it mean? And I was like, I wish Sabrina was here because if between the 2 of us, if there was one of us who would know anything, it would be you, because you at least practice it more and see these things more.
But that's tarot, and I'm not good at tarot. I'm not even good at oracle. Yeah. Actually, stay tuned. There will be an episode in the near future of oracle versus tarot and the origins of both so that we all can get a little bit more educated because who doesn't love getting smarter? This is our deck.
What is it? What's it called? Ancient Oracle?
The Southern Gothic Oracle. And I'm really sorry if you gave these to us. Please, will you let me know? One of our listeners gave it to us. Okay, I'm going to put my mic down as I shuffle them.
Okay.
And then I'll lay them out. I feel like I'm in Vegas.
There's a new game around town. When you're waiting to get a spot at the blackjack table, you can go over to Sabrina's Oracle table. You put all the cards out, and then everyone's like, ooh, what does it mean? And you're like, hold on, let me read the booklet.
Let me do exactly what you could do at home. I'm going to do a 2-card spread, which is past and present. The first card I'm pulling for the past is the Blessed Child, purity and loss of innocence. So that's past, and we'll read what it means in a second. Present, the Mockingbird, prophecies and communication.
I feel like we've pulled that one before.
I do feel like we have.
Yeah.
I feel like I've pulled both of these, to be honest. And this is how I learn about it. Actually, what I've been doing is every morning after I pull them, I then journal about it and I write what the card is and what they mean so that, like, slowly it's getting more in my head.
It's getting ingrained. I basically have a mockingbird on my cup.
Oh my gosh. Mug. Is that from New Hampshire?
It's from Maine Bay Pottery when we were in Portland back in April of 2023 for a live show.
It's so pretty.
Just blackbirds on there. Whatever kind you want.
Crows. The Blessed Child, past. The Southern religious tradition is grounded in the concept of redemption. In Pentecostal and missionary Baptist churches, among so many others, you'll find a highly performative religion of sin and salvation, with the focus on being spiritually cleansed through the Spirit, washed white as snow and born again. In this portrayal of a cemetery cherub, a haunting image of a child turned angel greets us in prayer. This image hits hard for many of us as it represents the ultimate in grief and tragedy, a lost child. Look at it as a symbol of innocence and purity. This card is not meant to be taken literally as a bad omen or looming death. Instead, it is a symbol of loss of innocence in your own life's journey, past or present. When do you feel your innocence was lost? What loss did you experience that has formed who you are today? Consider how your survival instinct can be a source of strength and courage. Okay, now the Mockingbird. Mockingbirds get their name because they famously use their melodious voices to mimic the sounds of other birds and even calls of insects and amphibians. Mockingbirds traditionally symbolize innocence, hence the meaning behind the famous Southern novel title, To Kill a Mockingbird is to destroy innocence. When the mockingbird speaks to you, it is asking you to be accepting and open to communications that you may urgently need right now. The card is about prophecies. Prepare for an important message to be delivered to you that will aid in your quest. The sign may come in form of birdsong, dreams, or visions. Meditate with an open mind. Be trusting because a deeper level of understanding is unfolding for you. It may be a time to expand your awareness and look at the choices available to you.
When you pulled those, were you thinking of yourself? Were you thinking of just like a general reading?
I was thinking about myself.
Pull some for me then. I want to know what I am.
Okay, think of yourself.
Okay.
Let me shuffle again.
We're all learning today. Is this the first time you pulled for yourself today? So you'll journal about these ones after? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I know you can't see the cards, but do you want to tell me when to stop?
Okay.
Actually, I feel one for you right now. Wow, that one is calling me. Okay. For the past, live oak, longevity and reliability.
Okay.
It's beautiful. I've never seen this card.
The actual card is beautiful. The artwork on it.
Blackberries for your present or future. Agency and independence.
I like how it was very nature-based, the artwork.
It is. I've never seen either of these cards, Corinne.
Ooh. What do they mean?
Let's look at the oak first. Okay. There are enormous live oak trees in America, many of which are designated landmarks in their cities and considered bona fide tourist attractions. Some are estimated to date back for multiple centuries with trunks that measure more than 30 feet in diameter. There's one in South Carolina called the Angel Oak. The live oak card is a symbol of longevity. Perhaps it is telling you that the journey you are on now will be long, prosperous, and full of adventures. Because your actions and intentions have been strong and reliable, others see you as solid with deep roots that are unquestionably strong. Like an ancient tree, you inspire awe and calm in people who seek shelter under your branches.
It's impossible to trip me. I've got the lowest center of gravity and carry most of my weight in my legs. So I do have a solid trunk.
A solid trunk. Another thing the card urges us to consider is the reliability of others. If someone is being insincere, providing inconsistent shelter when the storms come, it may be time for you to rent elsewhere. Okay, blackberries. Blackberry bushes grow wild throughout the South and are highly nutritious and delicious. In times of great strife, blackberries provided not only sustenance, but a valuable product that could be sold for cash, which you love cash.
Money, 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 come to me.
Blackberries thrive on neglect, springing up in places no one cares about and on seemingly barren patches of earth. This card reminds you to be solid and grounded in your connection to the earth beneath you. The earth provides for you, offering perfect solutions for some of the most dire challenges in life. When such resources are found and used well, they can give the autonomy to live independently. It is time to move forward with something you have been hesitant about. It is also a favorable time for travel. Maybe not, though, for you.
No, I'm pregnancy sick.
This card marks the abundance of something that is ready to nourish you richly, giving you the agency to pursue big goals that fulfill your own ideas.
I feel like this feels very spot on. I think while you plan to journal and do some meditation after your card pulling, I think after we finish this episode, this is telling me maybe I should go touch some grass.
Yeah.
Do a little grounding with my feet in the cold, cold, frozen earth.
That does it feels so good to do that.
I know.
Just get one with your backyard, with the nature.
Mm-hmm.
I actually last night went to go watch the sunset. I was like so ready. I brought my book. I was bundled in a sweatshirt. I was ready to go. I got out there and it was a freaking tundra of wind. Oh. I lasted maybe 2 minutes and I was like, I can't do this.
That's the worst. When you're so ready to be, especially like one of my favorite times to read outside is in the fall or even like in the spring when the air is crisp. There's like a crispness, but you can dress warm enough that like you feel cozy. And it feels like fresh and fulfilling. And it's like giving you life as you're entering another person's life in the book and pretending to not actually exist. I love that. And it's the worst when you go outside and you have all these plans and you've like packed everything up and you're in your little sweatshirt outfit and it gets sabotaged by planet Earth.
Well, yeah. And it was a beautiful day yesterday. I was like sweating the rest of the day. And then all of a sudden, when I wanted to go be in nature, it was like, actually, we're going to make it very difficult.
This is not for you. not today.
But okay, you know what is for us today? Ghost stories.
Yeah.
I also hope that maybe those cards spoke to someone else who's listening, because oftentimes messages that we think are for us are actually for other people like our listeners. So we love you all. I hope you can take time today to ground yourself. What I've been doing, actually, okay, so I learned this in trauma treatment. When you are feeling anxious or if you are feeling really strong emotion and you can't like reground yourself, you take 3 really deep breaths with your eyes closed. And then when you open your eyes, this is one of the tactics, you can look around the room and find 3 things that are blue, and like then find 3 things that are square, and then find 3 things that are like pretty and just different, and just distracting your brain like that helps
I like
recenter
that.
you.
Yeah. That's good. That's like I think Elena had told us about this a couple of years ago when we were at breakfast with her. The blowing out the candles, like the
Yeah.
just to like take the breaths and calm yourself down.
Yeah.
It's like that.
That's a good one too.
It's a good trick. I'm going to use it on myself.
And that one also kind of makes you laugh a little bit.
The kind of like ridiculousness of it. Pretend this is a candle.
Great for kids.
Or adults who want to feel a little silly and not as serious in the moment. And that's how you get yourself to reground.
Exactly. We did lead you a little astray in the beginning of this episode because we forgot to say something. Happy Cinco de Mayo.
America's favorite holiday.
America's favorite holiday to completely destroy and throw out some stereotypes and just like mislead everything. I'm going to real quick do a little bit of history about Cinco de Mayo so that we feel like we are educating ourselves before we just say Happy Cinco de Mayo, because I think
Perfect.
I think we should be informed while talking about
something. It's not
something.
just about eating Mexican food.
Right. It's not about just eating tacos and beer and spicy margaritas. We're going to help you celebrate with a good old-fashioned ghost story that will leave you a tingle on your tongue like some habanero spicy salsa.
Oh, yum. Oh, oh no. Now I'm craving black mole enchiladas. Oh. Or like a barrio
We can get
taco.
that for you.
Yeah, I'm going to have to order Mexican food.
The beauty of the internet is we can order that and it can be ready for you by the time you're done recording. Okay, so Cinco de Mayo is a holiday celebrated both in Mexico and was adopted in the United States in honor of a military victory in 1862 over the French forces of Napoleon III. So the enthusiasm that we in the United States have for the holiday actually came when there was a linked promotion of Mexican beverages. So basically they were trying to like promote selling Mexican beverages in the US, and they did it with the celebration of Cinco de Mayo, which worked really well.
So we adopted this holiday because they offered us a coupon, basically.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
And then I'm going to say this quote, which is from the Britannica. Unfortunately, ever since then, Americans have embraced and celebrated the holiday while perpetuating negative stereotypes and promoting excessive drinking, which are 2 big problems in the U.S.
So take off that sombrero hat and have like 5 less drinks.
Exactly.
And learn the history.
And maybe instead of drinking, let's share a ghostly tale that comes from Mexico.
Perfect.
It is the legend of La Planchada, a spirit as commonly seen as La Llorona. But the question is she as terrifying?
Okay.
So,
well, I'm scared because I feel like probably. If it's coming from Mexico and it's paranormal, then my full belief is that it's just going to be a horrifying tale.
And if it's coming from me. Yeah.
True. That too.
The combo. So we've discussed a lot of times on this podcast about how there are so many different varying beliefs in the paranormal and the afterlife. And Mexican culture specifically has such an extensive, oftentimes frightening supernatural beliefs that have culminated from centuries of varying influences. There's the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Puripeca, Catholics, so on. So there's just so many different influences on what we now know and understand as like the supernatural paranormal beliefs that come from Mexico. They, of course, have evolved over time, but we can say with confidence that they believe and have utter respect of the dead. And today there are many legends that have been passed down through time. We've heard of some of them. La Llorona, that weeping woman who seeks to kidnap wandering children and lure them into bodies of water she inhabits. Hello, come here. Do you have something to say? Come here. Okay, so we've heard of La Llorona, but have you heard of La Planchada, the Ironed Lady?
The Ironed Lady?
Mm-hmm.
So like she's a warrior.
She is in some way.
Okay.
As with many legends and lore, the origin story of La Planchada varies, but there's one that is very, very specific or like more commonly believed. So that's the one I will share today. And Corinne, I'm going to shock you really quick. Like I'm going to give you maybe the biggest shock of your life.
Okay, I'm nervous.
Despite my personal preference of picking horrifying, terrifying, unsettling tales,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that today.
You're right. This is the biggest shock of my life. Nothing could have prepared me for this.
I know.
I would have bet money against this happening.
Well, throwing a curveball this week, everyone.
Wow.
And today, instead of absolutely terrifying you, I'm actually going to entrance you with a pleasant tale. I am going to share with you a spirit that saves lives and has been noted as the nicest ghost you may ever encounter.
This is so uplifting. The nicest ghost?
Yeah.
And they're from Mexico?
Uh-huh.
Where our listeners consistently send us emails about like the exorcism at my aunt's house, my terrifying haunted encounter with La Llorona.
This is pleasant.
Wow.
This is a pleasant haunting. And this is,
so much to offer.
in a lot of the articles that I read, she is as commonly believed in and like encountered as La Llorona. So it's like, I just feel like we hear more about La Llorona because she's scary, right?
It makes me think that they're sisters and they just went totally different tracks with their paranormal lives.
I feel like I'm going to get like in trouble with saying this, but I feel like this is like La Llorona's the older sister and La Planchada is like the middle sister. And then like we haven't met the younger sister yet, but she's like a wild child.
Or La Llorona could be the youngest too.
Okay. She's definitely not the middle.
Who, La Llorona?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's too much action being taken for her to be the middle child. But normally, like, the first child is a little bit more, like, orderly and tries to keep people in line. Whereas, like, the last child just kind of is a loose cannon, which is La Llorona. So maybe that's it.
I think I'm using my family as, like, an example. Like, my sister was more of the wild child at first. And now, of course, she's a wonderful, lovely mother and sister and daughter. But my brother is like the like rule follower, he just like is like way more pure.
Yeah, they should have been switched, their birth orders. Or maybe your parents got stricter with you guys because of what your sister did when she was younger. All that she got away with.
They were, my sister definitely got away with stuff, but my brother was just like way more chill and like didn't need to be punished as much.
Yeah.
My mom got way more chiller just as we got older. But okay. It's not about me. This is about La Planchada. So despite sometimes appearing horrifyingly, she is a very good spirit and you would be honored to see her because most of the time, if you are seeing her, it is because you are ill and in need of medical assistance. And when this ghost appears to you, it's a very good sign because she might save your life. La Planchada is said to be the spirit of a female nurse who pays special attention to the appearance of her clothing. So despite her physical appearance, her clothing will always be very perfectly ironed, which is why she's now the ironed lady.
Oh,
it is not because she's been like flattened like an iron. It's not like she's...
I was picturing her like in a full ironed suit, like ready to go to battle, basically. That's just like, wow. I mean, she's a warrior. She's a superhero.
She's a warrior in a ironed nurse's dress.
She's got her shit together. The creases only exist where a crease should be.
Exactly. So the origin story of La Planchada is very classic Grey's Anatomy soap. So get ready for this.
Wow. The drama.
So the story tells of a young nurse whose name was Ulia. She worked apparently at Hospital Juarez, located in Mexico City in the 1930s. And we have a photo of the hospital that we will put in our YouTube video that you can see in very classic Grey's Anatomy fashion, or maybe a little bit more Waverly Hills fashion, because it's a darker, kind of sad, more tragic ending. Ulia fell in love with a doctor named Dr. Joaquin, but it wasn't instant. It was a love that grew over time. Ulia was a hard worker. She cared about her patients. She was diligent about her time at the hospital. She was kind. She was empathetic. And she was very serious. So when she showed up for work, she was very much like head down, do my tasks, attend to the patients. That was kind of her MO. Everyone, she was friendly with the other nurses, but she wasn't one to gossip. She wasn't one to go chit chat. She wasn't one to go out for drinks and socialize.
Yeah. I mean, her ironed nursing outfit too makes me think she's very like orderly and precise.
Very.
And she has her routine and her schedule and everything is just exactly that every day.
Exactly. And so she would leave work every day and go home to her family. And she was working to help bring in finances for her family. She had a mom, a dad, and 2 younger brothers. And she actually didn't have romance on her mind at all. She was very content with her life. She would go home. She would make dinner with her family. She would sit with them. They would do a lot of family events and she would read books. And she was just very, reserved and kept to herself. An introvert after my own heart. But she did have some friends at the hospital, and after working there for some time, there was one day they were all sitting at lunch, and I guess there was some hospital goss that started to go around.
Ooh.
She heard rumors of a new doctor who was coming to work at the hospital. His name was Dr. Joaquin. Apparently, all the other nurses was like, he's intelligent, and he's handsome, and he's tall, and he comes from a good family. So according to the story, the director of the hospital called all the nurses who were available to come meet this new doctor, Dr. Joaquin, and Ulia at the time was with a patient, so she did not go.
Mm-hmm.
So she had not met him, but her friends come back and fill her in. And, you know, they're like, we'll tell you all the goss. Ulia, you know you never ask, but we'll tell you anyway. Those are her friends.
They had to tell someone because they were all together. They had already experienced it. So they're like, who hasn't that we can go tell? Oh my God, he's so hot. Wait till you meet the new doctor.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of, what's that movie, Shape of Water, with the woman who's mute. And so like her friend just talks to her the whole time.
I've actually never seen Shape of Water. I know I reference it a lot. I just know that
You've never seen it?
No, that there's like this amphibian beast that has sex with the nurse or something.
Yeah, I just watched it for the first time. I could have sworn you've brought it up so many times. I could have sworn.
I really thought I knew what it was about based on just the trailer. It's enough that I brought it up a bunch. But no, I've never seen it. It
is basically what you just said it is, but it reminds me of that. So she's mute in the movie, and I feel like she ends up taking up in everyone else's gossip because she can't stop them. Okay, so these girls, they all come to Ulia and they fill her in. They're like, he was so hot, but also like he for sure has a chip on his shoulder and like seems super arrogant. And like just, I'm picturing Mindy Kaling in the office talking about him right now. Honestly,
Kelly?
We could all do so much better than him. But like if he like looked at me, I would just literally die. And he kind of had the Ryan attitude where he was like arrogant. And apparently when they all met him, he was like, okay, like I'm not going to waste my time with the nurses. Like, kind of energy. That was the rumor. Ulia had not met him.
I'm getting pissed. Like, I don't even know if this is this part real or is this legend? Is this whole thing
This
legend?
Is all part of the legend.
Well, Joaquin, I'm pissed at you. Whether you're real or fake.
Just wait.
Okay.
So Ulia doesn't really care. She's just like, okay, like, well, I have no desire to really meet him. Doesn't matter. Sucks that he sucks. But like...
Yeah, she doesn't bother with a bunch of people anyway.
Yeah.
So like, what's another person that doesn't want to bother with her?
Right. But not too long after, a patient is rushed in with a gunshot wound to the leg. And they have to be rushed into an emergency surgery, which Dr. Joaquin ends up being the surgeon in charge of this. And Ulia ends up happening to be the nurse on duty. So these two who had never been introduced really to each other had heard, you know, she had heard of him. Who knows if he had heard of her? There's no time for introductions. They have to extract the bullet. They're rushing this patient into surgery and they are working together so seamlessly. It is like they're working side by side. Hand me the scalpel. This is my Grey's Anatomy, like brain imagining it. And they take 1 second to maybe lock eyes, but they're in the midst of like pulling out the bullet and they're working together so seamlessly.
And there's nothing sexier than just pulling bullets out of people's bloody injured legs.
Nothing sexier than locking eyes over a bleeding leg. And they save this man. This is what Ulia trained for. She wanted to save lives. Like she's very hyper-focused in this moment. And she actually like, I think she really admires that this doctor also was hyper-focused and didn't stop to be like, let me chat to this nurse who's cute. No, like he was very much like, I'm here for the job as well. And
yeah,
like I said, that was Ulia's, whole thing.
They were very professional.
They saved a life together. And it wasn't until after the successful surgery that Dr. Joaquin introduced himself. And he was not at all what the other nurses had told her. He wasn't arrogant. He seemed kind and he was dedicated to the job. Ulia liked that he was focused on the surgery. It was something that she did. It was attractive to her. And after that, Ulia fell hard.
Oh
and gosh. I don't know that this photo that I'm about to show is actually a photo of Ulia, but it's like in multiple articles about her. It's like the same photo of a nurse. So I'm putting it here with the caveat that I don't know that it's actually her. It's just a picture of a nurse. So the two were absolutely smitten. They started dating. He was courting her and they would eat lunch together. And everyone in the hospital knew, like they could see how in love that they were falling with one another. And Ulia seemed very, very happy. But again, these nurses do be gossiping. And they're like, I don't know. I still don't like Dr. Joaquin. There's something off about him. And he's also still flirting with other people. Like, he was a flirty guy. So people had a little bit of a concern, but Ulia did not. And then Dr. Joaquin proposed to her.
Oh.
And she, of course, said yes. The two were to be wed. But then, before they could ever plan their wedding, Dr. Joaquin is like, I must be going for a short period of time. And he told her that he had a seminar in another city that he had to speak at as a doctor, and he would be gone for like 2 weeks. And Ulia is like, oh my gosh, no worries. I know I'm like totally putting this into today's language. This is just how my brain works. So she's like, that's okay. Like, go take your trip. I'm not worried. We'll continue planning the wedding when you get back.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Joaquin leaves. And Ulia fully expected him to be gone for 2 weeks, but she also expected him to like have some type of contact with her.
Right.
She doesn't hear from him. And then like she starts to get a weird sinking feeling like something is wrong. And another nurse approaches her and is very sad to inform Ulia that Dr. Joaquin is not at another seminar. He's actually on his honeymoon with his new bride.
This is the biggest surprise in all of reality television that I've ever experienced. I'm shocked. I thought, maybe he was on like a vacation with his mistress or whatever, but like literally already married, planning multiple weddings at the same time.
Yeah.
On his honeymoon.
He's on his honeymoon. Like, why propose to her? Like, what's that? What does that do?
Yeah. What does it do?
This is like something was wrong.
Literally.
So those nurses were correct that he had a chip on his shoulder. He was arrogant and a dick. Ulia was absolutely devastated, as you can imagine. She was blindsided and completely heartbroken. And I'm not really sure what happened confrontation-wise. Like, none of the articles really spoke about this, but Dr. Joaquin and Ulia ended their relationship. And I don't know necessarily how they communicated after that. I don't know if Dr. Joaquin like returned to the hospital, but basically Ulia was absolutely heartbroken and betrayed and could hardly focus on taking care of herself, let alone the patients at work.
Right. I am glad, though, that she ended things, too. Despite what, like, again, we don't know what happened, but, like, she ended things and quite possibly still had to assist him in surgeries. Can you imagine how difficult that would be?
That would be absolutely awful.
Yeah.
According to legend, she ended up, I don't really believe this. I don't know if it's true. I think people it's one of those things where when you hear what her spirit does, I think people try to like after fact be like, oh, she does this because she has guilt or remorse. But it might just be because she cares about the patients. But there was one piece of information in the legend when she was so heartbroken and gutted and hardly able to take care of herself. Apparently, she had neglected a patient or two, or like some patients had gotten sicker on her duty because of her where she was mentally. But to be fair, she's not the only nurse working at this hospital. She's also not the attending doctor. So I'm not going to give her any blame.
Yeah, it's tough. And knowing all the gossip that existed within this group of staff, you would think that people would maybe be a little bit. I know that being a nurse can be incredibly difficult, and like oftentimes they're understaffed and have too many patients to even think about anyone else anyway. But you would think that they'd be like, holy shit, she just went through this terrible, terrible breakup. Perhaps we should not assign her many people.
Yeah.
Like give her a little bit of time to like readjust.
Right. Very sadly, though, Ulia never readjusted because as weeks went by, she slipped further and further into depression that led to a lot of illnesses and eventually to her death. Ulia left this realm heartbroken. But instead of seeking revenge or allowing her anger to consume her in spirit form, Ulia came back to serve a greater purpose. She came back to heal. Because shortly after her death, Ulia's spirit began to appear in the hospital, always dressed impeccably, her clothing perfectly ironed, and patients would tell their nurses and doctors about the nurse who came in earlier or over the night and helped them, which was quite confusing to people who were on shift because they're like, there were no doctors or nurses in your room.
Right.
Over time, the visits became more and more frequent and more common that the spirit earned the name La Planchada because her dress was ironed. Everyone said, like, despite what her appearance looked like, it was like so notable how neatly and perfectly
clean.
Ironed her clothing was, yeah.
Yeah.
Some people say she emits a glow. Some say she floats. Others say she walked completely normally. But most patients will awake to find her standing by their bedside. And though she may appear in different ways, her dress is always ironed, which is the common theme. And another common theme is that after La Planchada visits these patients, many of them are miraculously healed.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
That's right.
I love her.
La Planchada is not trying to steal your children or hurt you. She's trying to save you. Her devotion to caring for the ill has transcended her lifetime and has made it her afterlife to help those in need. She goes out of her way to visit patients who need extra help, or she basically will see when the hospital is understaffed, she will go to the patients who have perhaps been neglected because of that. She will help deliver medicine. She will fix loose IVs. She'll often catch mistakes that would otherwise go unnoticed.
Whoa. I wonder how she does that. Is she telling someone something or is she just fixing it? How does she alert people to those mistakes?
There's various ways. Sometimes she'll just fix it herself. Other times she basically will inform the patient.
Oh, to be like, oh, this is wrong. And then they'll repeat it to the next person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. What a great way to spend her afterlife.
I know. And I'm going to share some stories from people who have personally encountered La Planchada. There are patients who check in feeling very ill and doctors are not able to diagnose their problems. And the next morning, they miraculously feel better. When asked why they feel better, patients respond, "A nurse came in and healed me." But no one in the hospital staff had gone in to see that patient the night prior. There is another iteration of La Planchada's origin story that doesn't have to do with this Grey's Anatomy romance turned tragedy. But there was one story where this nurse had contracted a disease and died in the hospital. And she helps people staying in that room. But La Planchada isn't just at Hospital Juarez in Mexico City. She has been seen in other hospitals too. She is seen walking halls in other hospitals and checking on patients and doing the same thing. Wow. So I don't know if it's specifically this one spirit or if other people who have since passed away have taken on the same type of role and really felt inspired by what Planchada does, that they now do it as well. But
yeah, or is this geographically, how far apart are these hospitals? Had she ever worked there before, just been there to train? Were these hospitals she considered being a nurse at? Is there a connection to these specific hospitals? And
I don't think there is a connection because I think they're all pretty far apart. And there's even one story where someone appeared when they called a doctor, someone came to the house. So, I mean, we have no idea how the paranormal realm works. Also with La Llorona, she can travel through bodies of water. Can La Planchada do that too? I don't know. But this one story takes place at Juarez Hospital, which is where the origin story comes from. The story goes there was a nurse named Maria who was working a late shift one night, and she was absolutely exhausted. She worked the night shifts and she would usually sleep during the day. But this day, her kids both had gotten sick and stayed home from school. And so she had to take care of them all day and then go to work a night shift at the hospital. She had not gotten any sleep. So she was tired. She was happy to do it. Obviously, she was I'm going to take care of my kids. But she was exhausted when she arrived at work.
Right.
And when she came onto duty, there was the other nurse who basically, there was the shift switch where they go over everything. And so this nurse reviews everything with Maria, and she tells her that there's this one patient that needs his next dose of medicine at 1 a.m. And apparently it was very important that he gets it at 1 a.m. Maria agreed, she understood, but then she had to sit alone at the nurse's station, very sleepily. And the much needed sleep started to sink its teeth into Maria, and she fell asleep for just a little bit, but she woke up at 1:30 a.m. with a fright. She was panicked. She realized the time and she rushed to the patient's room, profusely apologizing. But the patient was like, no worries. Your colleague administered the shot already. And Maria was like, what colleague? I'm alone here right now.
I literally have chills too, because the actual action, it's more than just going and pressing a button or being is everything okay? Maybe you should turn to your side. She's physically doing things and administering medicine into someone's body. Wow, powerful.
So this patient looks at Maria and is like, the blonde nurse, she gave me the injection and she left. So that's one story. And now I have a couple other stories that I found on Reddit. And so 5 years ago, a user called Slaying Immortal shared their dad's encounter with La Planchada. They wrote, I don't remember exact details, but before my dad passed away, he would tell us about the time he was saved by La Planchada, saved by her. Before my dad met my mom back in Mexico, it was around the 70s or 80s, my dad got incredibly sick to the point where he was hospitalized with an intense fever that had been there for days. At the time, he lived in Guerrero, which was not anywhere close to a hospital, so they held off taking him until he was literally at death's doors. When he was in the hospital, doctors did their thing and eventually retired for the night. It was a general hospital, so he was in a room where it was separated using just curtains to create the pseudo-room sort of emergency theaters in the US, but no walls. He had his curtain open all the way since there weren't any patients in the room or hall he was in. He told us he specifically remembered feeling like he was going to die. He literally was at the point where he was calling out for nurses because he thought he was passing out.
My gosh, that's so scary.
No one answered his calls, which was sadly not uncommon in Mexican hospitals at the time. At this point, it's very much into what my dad felt. He told us he remembers getting a distinct feeling as if his skin was slowly drifting off of him. A nurse finally came by wearing all white. Her clothes were perfect, without a single fold in them. The nurse tended to my dad and even gave him some medicine. The next day, he woke up a lot better. He was still sick, but he was no longer passing out, and his fever finally rescinded a bit. He talked to the doctor that came in the morning and asked if he could thank the nurse who came in and worked the night shift because he believed that she saved him. The doctor informed him that there were only a handful of nurses in the building, and no one was working in that wing that night. My dad took it as strange, but didn't further investigate with the doctor and decided he'll ask the next nurse who comes. The nurse said the same thing. And when my dad described what the nurse looked like, the nurse told him that no one who worked there fit that description. After he left the hospital, he was as good as new, but he always remembered that some lady saved his life. He told his story to his dad, and his dad told him about the legend of La Planchada and how she saves people who are in need in her hospitals. Being Mexican and superstitious, he left it at that. I always believed he was telling the truth, but I didn't really look into it until my mom remembered about the incident a few days ago. Like I said, my dad is no longer with us, and from time to time we talk about stories of his life and his experiences. And I Googled it and was so surprised at how this is not an isolated incident. There's such an interesting background to the nurse, and she's sort of like the Mexican guardian angel. Then, 11 months ago, Ginger Snap's cat posted the following story on Reddit. It was captioned, "Ghost nurse healed me when I was a child." And the context was, I am chronically ill, immunosuppressed, and get sick very easily and especially frequently throughout my childhood. When I was 10 or 12, I caught a really bad flu. Fevers around 104, vomiting, couldn't stand, the whole shebang. Of course, as a young kid, you definitely think you're going to die in these situations. I remember laying on an air mattress in my parents' room alone, feeling absolutely miserable. All of a sudden, a very pretty young woman dressed in early 1900s old-timey nurse clothing appeared above me. She bent down and told me everything would be okay. She touched my forehead as if to test my temperature, smiled at me, and disappeared. I instantly felt cured of whatever flu I had. I could never explain how I went from 1 foot in the grave to completely fine, but this woman made me feel safe, loved, and taken care of. She was beautiful, and I've never seen her since then, but I wish I could in order to thank her.
Oh, I love this because it sounds like the experiences that this woman in her astral paranormal form has with adults is so much more different than how she spends time with kids. Like she's, as a nurse, adults ask more questions, right? So like she's prepared to actually administer medicine, or like maybe she's faking it the whole time because it sounds like she can just literally touch someone and and cure them. It does feel like she's doing a placebo with other things where she's like, I'm going to pretend to do this thing because this is what you're expecting to happen. But really, I'm just curing you by touch or energy. Wow.
Yeah. So there's 2 other stories that are shorter. So Trippy Beth shared, my dad had a similar experience while in the hospital with a complicated hip replacement. He said an old-timey nurse came in and brought him a milkshake in a wax paper cup from the 50s. He asked about this nurse the next morning, and no one knew who he was talking about.
I want that to happen to me.
Cheese and Crackers 84 wrote, I've had a couple very similar experiences in hospitals. I was in and out of hospitals since childhood with lung disease, and the most intense one was a few years ago. I was really unwell and in the ICU, and I saw a nurse, all in white, standing at the end of my bed, which was weird because everyone else at that hospital was wearing blue scrubs. And this nurse was in all white wearing an old-fashioned cap. Immediately, I felt a sense of peace and knew I was going to be okay. To this day, I cannot explain it at all.
Wow.
So that is the story of La Planchada. And if you are ever in the hospital, I hope you see her.
Wow. So far, only hospitals in Mexico. She's not coming up to New England to help me when I have my baby.
But that one kid story was a house call. So
True. Yeah.
maybe.
Wow. What an incredible. And honestly, the fact that you said that there are these other hospitals that are experiencing similar things. Now it does feel like she's kind of, whether she's inspired others or like just her power, I feel like she's being like rewarded and they're basically like splitting her into multiple. She's like becoming this angelic being of healing. And it's just like she can be everywhere now. She doesn't just have to be at one spot.
Yeah. I mean, whether it's her everywhere or she's inspired people to come back in the same way, it's amazing and incredible.
Yeah.
And because I spent hours researching for this episode and I was like, okay, Mexico has so many creepy places. Like I started doing research on this one house that was horrific. Like so many tragedies happened there. And it was definitely a spooky story, but I was like, yikes, this doesn't feel good.
Just depressing.
Yeah. So I went positive today.
Okay, well, in a few weeks, I have a story coming up that is also from Mexico. And at the very end, there is this kind of weird healing piece of it. So maybe something's going on there. And when you reach the afterlife or even in life in Mexico, it's just like, it does seem like because of, we say this with the Philippines too, there's some sort of energy going on there where it really does feel like people have so much, you can harness so much power, so much energy.
I think it's because they have so much belief and respect in it. I don't know. I think there's so much respect and so much regard for it that I feel like in the same way when we were talking to Greg and Dana about how they created a ghost, and then we will in a couple of weeks talk about Philip the ghost that was created. I do think when you harness this energy and so focus it, you can create a haunting. And you can create something.
And you're right. It's like in America, we are like the melting pot. So there's so many different religions and cultures and even just geographically how different parts of America are. So I think you're right. There's something to just like a country who has like a really large population that has very similar beliefs, all kind of channeling their energy into something.
And also a lot of fear of something. Like I feel like their fear of La Llorona and like even talking about, you know, some creatures, which I won't say their names, but like speaking about them gives them more power, which is why even the one story that I read where the girl's dad, who has since passed away, heard about La Planchada after he had this like encounter with the nurse. He was just like, all right, I accept it. It's one of those things where it's, if you believe in superstitions, you're just going to accept it for what it is and not ask questions.
Right. And sometimes when you're so sick like that, it's like just to accept the miracle. Just be like, thank you, universe, for whatever reason that I was given to have this opportunity. Thank you. I'll leave it at that. Don't ask too many questions or maybe it won't happen again.
Exactly.
Oh, man. Whoa. I love this woman. She's my favorite. I love her so much.
Me too.
Not what I was expecting from you, Sabrina. So the listener email that I'm going to read today is a little bit more spooky, and it was sent from a listener
great, though.
In Mexico.
Now people get a little bit of both.
Yes. Okay, this is from Adam. Hello, ladies, you ghostesses. I'm still listening to the earlier episodes. I got to catch up, but I just have to say that you guys keep me awake while I drive in the middle of the night. Better to be terrified than falling asleep behind the wheel. Again. Uh-oh. Especially scared of your first Haunted Roads episode. And then they like reenact what happened. It was like, Corinne, close your eyes and imagine for a moment me. I can't. I'm driving. Corinne, imagine you are driving. Me. I am driving. Corinne, it's late at night and you're surrounded by woods. Me. It's midnight and I am driving through woods. Corinne, there are no lights, no street lights, moonlight, nothing. Your only light source is your headlights. Me, a little scared. There are no lights. Where is Corinne taking me in this land of imagination? Corinne, and when you look through your rearview mirror, you see a silhouette of a nun in your back seat. Me, immediately turns to the back seat to yell at the nun that I'm not an Uber or Lyft, but nothing was there. I face the road again and gun it to reach civilization before I spot the nun's companion, the lady in white. And then they say,
terrifying.
I know. Sorry, Adam. Or maybe not. Because then Adam says, although when I got home, I immediately fell asleep, but thank you for terrifying me on the road, and I'm being sincere. I can't drink coffee. Caffeine makes me violently ill, so I really do need to find alternatives to keep me awake on those dark roads.
Fear. Nothing better than fear. Forget caffeine.
For your life. Now to my cousin's story. Yeah, it's my cousin's story. I noticed that I haven't experienced anything scary or ghostly. But wait, there are 2 things that did happen to me, but they seem minor in comparison to what happened to my sisters and my cousins. Before my cousins were even a thought, my aunt, Tia Ophelia, and my uncle, Tia Guillermo, recently got married, and as a gift for his bride, Tio Guillermo bought some land and was going to build a house. This was in Mexico back in the 1970s, by the way. Tia Ophelia was living with her dad and that horrid woman that makes the devil look like a saint. I mean, her stepmother. While Tia Guillermo built the house. Not sure what made him and his brothers and cousins think, building a house is cool and all, but let's communicate with the dead to spice things up a bit, because that is what they chose to do. One of them whipped out a Ouija board to play on the foundation of Tio Guillermo's unfinished home.
Sometimes you need a little bit of a break from building a house.
Yeah, classic lunch break. Isn't that what everyone does?
Yeah, Ouija board and lunch, sandwiches.
Not sure what happened. My mom was the one who told us this story, and she heard it from my dad, but she didn't give many details since his sister, my aunt, didn't go into details either. But after playing the Ouija board, who knows how many times, they did eventually finish building the house. Well, after my cousins came to this lovely world, crazy shit began to happen. Strangely, only the upper floor has the most activity. I remember when my family visits them, my cousins would always tell us to never go upstairs alone. As an 8-year-old, I didn't really think anything of it. I didn't want to go upstairs on my own anyways. The people are on the ground floor. Now, as my 31-year-old self, and several ghost stories later, I still didn't want to go up to their second floor alone. My peeps are on the ground floor, so F that. I know a lot of things happened in the house, but I only remember these 3 events. The first is when my older sisters, Olivia and Vanessa, were 8 and 6. I was about a year old at the time, and I was really sick. Everyone suspected at the time that my dad's horrible stepmother had cursed me, so my parents were desperate to find a cure for me.
My gosh.
I was practically scratching myself to death. Tia Ophelia decided that my sisters would spend the weekend with them. So my sisters were losing sleep because of my constant crying, so they would at least get some sleep at my aunt and uncle's house.
Wait, can I clarify this real quick? This is Adam, who they believe was hexed?
Yes, Adam was like a 1-year-old being cursed by the evil stepmother.
I'm sorry, Adam, you said that nothing scary has happened to you, and this is horrifying. I know, it sounds like something's going to happen to your cousins, but something terrifying has happened to you.
Yeah, maybe consciously nothing has happened to Adam. He doesn't remember it. He's too young. But yeah, came into this world cursed, I guess.
Jeez.
Okay, my sisters were losing sleep because of the constant crying, so they thought that they would at least get some sleep at my aunt and uncle's house. Who knew how wrong they were? About 2 a.m. that night, Tio Guillermo had to bring my sisters back to our house. My parents were awake, thanks to my crying, so they saw them approaching, and my sisters were terrified. They were shaking violently, and they said that they saw red-eyed Petra under Petra's bed. My cousins, Ermina, Petra, and Helena, said the same thing, even though Petra was on her bed. They described the spirit as looking like a much older version of Petra with glowing red eyes.
Jesus.
The second event occurred when Ermina, Petra, and Helena were teenagers. Ermina was studying for finals, while Petra and Helena were fast asleep. The 3 girls ended up sharing a room after way too many events, because strength in numbers. Ermina was already on edge from all the studying when both Petra and Helena began to scream. Ermina told her sisters to shut up when they both ran to her, pointing under Petra's bed. Well, Ermina was done with all this spooky shit, so she threw her shoe under the bed and challenged the spirit. "I've got finals. If I fail, my wrath will be worse than yours," she yelled. The spirit began to crawl out from under the bed.
No.
Its shadowy fingers reaching out to them. Petra and Helena tried to escape, but their bedroom doors wouldn't open. They began to scream for their parents and pound against the door. Ermina, well, she grabbed a pair of scissors and was trying to stab the spirit. She was not happy that it interrupted her studies. Tio Guillermo and Tia Ophelia woke to their daughters screaming, and they ran to go check on them, but they couldn't get into the girls' bedroom door. Finally, with one hard push, Tío Guillermo got the door to open and barged inside. Petra and Helena ran into their father's arms, sobbing, while Ermina was still stabbing the spirit, yelling at it, even cursing at it. It took both of the parents to drag her out of the room because she, quote, wasn't done with it.
I'm so curious if they could see the spirit still, or if she wasn't, like, what could they see?
Yeah, if it was like only the girls, or if their parents could also see.
Jeez.
Strangely, after that night, the spirit would only show up when Ermina was out of the house. If she's home, the spirit is quiet. When she's gone for a few days, the activity will start again until she returns. Oh my gosh, so the spirit's afraid of her now.
That's so wild.
The last event occurred when I was 13, and my baby sister, Mirta, was 3. We were all in Mexico for winter break, which we did every winter, and my parents own a house there, so we always stay there when we go down to Mexico. I can't remember where us older kids were, but I do know that my baby sister and my mom were at home when Tia, Ophelia, and Helena visited. Mirta wanted to go with Helena to her house to play. Helena agreed to look after Mirta for a bit, and soon took my little sister back to her house with her. After some time, us older kids, Olivia, Vanessa, Alfie, and we returned from who knows where, and that is when my mom made us turn around and told us to go pick up Mirta. I remember we were tired, but we made the trek back to town to go pick up Mirta from Helena's house, and when we got there, we spotted Helena and Mirta playing on the bed of Tío Guillermo's pickup truck in the driveway. When Helena saw us, she looked relieved. "I'm so glad you guys are here," she called out to us. Apparently, red-eyed Petra had returned. Helena told us that she and Mirta were in her bedroom playing with dolls when Mirta shushed Helena and pointed to the closet. The closet didn't even have a door, but a curtain that covers it. "Petra is watching us," my sister told her. 3 years old. Remember, 3 years old. "Petra isn't here. She's in Colotlan," Helena explained, but Mirta shook her head. "She's in there," Mirta whispered, pointing at the closet. "What is she doing?" Helena asked. "Petra's angry. She's angrily watching us. She wants to get out," Mirta whispered, now looking more scared. Helena looked over at the closet when she noticed the curtain was being pushed aside. Helena grabbed Mirta, closed the bedroom door, and they both hurried down to the living room. Helena decided to put on a movie to shake off the nerves, but she kept an eye on the stairs. After the movie, Helena asked Mirta if she enjoyed the movie, and Mirta nodded and then got all serious and told her, "Petra isn't happy you slammed the door on her face."
Oh.
From the second story, she heard the door rattling. So Helena then picked up Mirta and carried her out of the house towards her dad's truck, where we found them. Olivia and Vanessa were trying to explain it away when Mirta shushed us all. "Petra is watching us," she whispered, pointing to the second floor window. Well, we all decided to book it. I remember running as fast as I could, adrenaline pumping. I look over my shoulder and I saw that Olivia was running back towards the house, and my thoughts raced as I watched her sprint back. Why was Olivia running back? Did she want to see the ghost or something? Was she going to pull an Ermina and challenge the spirit? Was she... Oh, shit, we left Mirta behind. She ran back because, we left our baby sister behind. We ran to the church where my mom and Helena's mom were at, just chatting, and my mom saw us running and asked why we were running. "We wanted to see Jesus," was what Helena told them, and we all ran into the church. Years later, Vanessa told my mom what happened that day, and that is when my mom told us the story about Tío Guillermo playing with the Ouija board, Olivia and Vanessa's sleepover, which Vanessa didn't even remember, and other stories that now I don't really remember. But that is my story of Red-Eyed Petra. I hope you enjoyed it. See you on the other side. Adam.
What the actual heck? What is going on with Petra? It's because it's obviously not Petra, but why is it choosing to show up as Petra? And why was it always under Petra's bed? And it's so weird that it didn't ever come out from under the bed until they physically interacted with it.
Yeah, it is so strange. Why show up as Petra consistently too? Because it's years passed.
Right.
And Red-Eyed Petra came back.
And it's not like it's a present day Petra either. It's an older Petra.
Right. This is making me think of Haunting of Hill House, too, where I'm like,
I know. Me too.
Something. Will we find out why this happens?
But it's definitely something is dark in that house. And I also just what's happened since then? Do they still own that house? What's going on?
And how far away does Ermina live? Because I feel like she needs to permanently live in there to stifle any activity, since she put her foot down and the spirit was like, "Oh, God. Okay.
You can't mess with her
that
anymore.
one, girl." Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy, too, that that this spirit is like scared of Ermina or like doesn't make moves to like do any paranormal sort of activity while she's there. Because you would think that this spirit, I keep calling this spirit a she, but like the red-eyed Petra that is appearing to be an older version of one of these cousins, of Adam's cousins, this group of sisters, it seems like she does mean to cause like fear and harm, especially when Myrta was like, she doesn't like that you slam the door. She's staring at us. She's angry. She's watching us.
Yeah, she's not happy.
Like, these are all these warnings. So why is she scared of Ermina?
Because she came at her with scissors.
Yeah, maybe I guess Ermina's unpredictable now. And red-eyed Petra's like, man, humans can be scary too.
I like that a dark red-eyed creature is like terrified of it, human. Like that is a fun twist. Dear me.
Oh my God.
Adam, I'm also curious about your curse and whatever happened about that. Like,
I know.
How'd that go away?
Yeah.
And why did you think that you were cursed? Like, what was it about that person that made you think your family believed you were? Because that also, if his family was cursed, could this red-eyed Petra be related to that at all?
Oh, that's interesting. What if there was an attempt at cursing Petra too, and it just like didn't work to Petra as a young kid, but like the curse kind of manifested and created its own like sort of energy, version? Like you were just talking about before, where it's like you can create a haunting, and this being is Petra, but it's like the curse and the darkness and like the disgust that was supposed to happen to baby Petra that just, she was Harry Potter. It was like, you can't get me.
The girl who lived.
The girl who lived, come to die.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's terrifying. I almost forgot that this whole episode was more pleasant until...
I know. Well, and also...
Because this was so scary.
It was hard to choose an email because we have so many emails from listeners from Mexico.
Well, we could do a whole encounters.
We should. This shit's haunted.
And if you're haunted or if you have any encounters, whether it's from Mexico, from anywhere in the world, from your own backyard, from your neighbor, or whatever it may be, please email it to us at twogirlsoneghostpodcast@gmail.com. If you would like to get episodes 1 week early and ad-free, plus bonus episodes every month, plus campfire stories every Tuesday night live with us, go check out and join us on Patreon. Become our most haunted friend. You get everything that we just talked about and more for $5 a month.
Shout out to Jamie Ryan, who edits and produces our audio and video so that this podcast can come out multiple times a week. Thank you, Jamie. We could not do it without you.
Seriously. We love you all. Thank you for joining.
And we will see you on the other side.